Hey guys, welcome back to the At the Coffee Table podcast. I am Jason Klink, your host. Today I am joined by Rachel Watkins. Today we're going to talk about life pivots and how life changes and you move from maybe one career into another or one industry into another. Just give you a little background on Rachel. I wanted to have her on my podcast. Just if you've seen any of her social media content, it's one of those life pivots that really is one of I guess you could consider a success story. So Rachel, just give you a little background. Rachel is an ambassador for Plexus. She's a former RN that worked in a pediatric and neonatal intensive care unit for many, many years. But she had moved out of that into Plexus, and also because of her competitive scholastic sports background, she also moved into some bodybuilding competitions. So, and managing all that, she has a young family with her husband, who's a police officer. Thank you for your service. And so, Rachel, thank you for joining me here today.
Hi, you're welcome. I'm excited to be here.
So this is a really cool conversation for me, and it kind of hits home a little bit because I made the big scary jump off a cliff and left public safety and civil service to work outside of that, work in business. What was your catalyst that kind of took you from being an RN in a pediatric or neonatal ICU into what you do now?
So there's kind of a lot of factors that go into that. Pre-children, when it was just my husband and I, we both actually worked full-time evenings. So he was at the police department, I was at the hospital, and we knew that someday when we had kids that we wanted me to be available to them. I didn't necessarily want to work full-time. I grew up with a mom that was a stay-at-home mom. I like to call her the play-at-home mom. And also Steve also had his mom, was home and available. And so I wanted that for our kids too, even though society and our culture, it's very much, you need two incomes to live, a life now.
Right.
So what we did initially was just kind of budget our life when it was just the two of us on just my husband's salary. So that come the time when we had kids, me going to just part-time at the hospital, we were able to financially handle that. Plexus entering our life was, the business side, a complete accident, accidental business. Seriously.
Tripped right over it.
We were looking for just some supplements to help support our total health, our gut health, maybe help with a little bit of weight loss, energy, and friends were using the products. Me being a nurse, I was super skeptical. Same with my husband being in law enforcement. This magical juju juice and probiotics and all that. That's not something that in the medical field, you're taught. You're not taught about gut health. You're not taught about prevention over prescription. And so we ended up using the products. We started with them in 2014. And because of the changes that we started feeling and seeing, people started asking them about us and what we were doing. And so the business just kind of happened.
Right. So, there's a lot of the nutrition, the supplement, the better health type companies that are out there. What makes Plexus different from some of the other?
Yep. So me again, being the nurse and the researcher, even though our friends were talking to us about Plexus, I still wanted to look out there in the industry. And like you said, the fitness industry is super saturated with supplements. Even just the health and wellness industry, super saturated. So I looked at Plexus. I asked for nutrition labels, the most used products. But then I researched some other companies. I'm going to leave them unnamed, but even local companies that have flagship stores. I looked at ingredients, and what I wanted to avoid at that point was artificial sugars, artificial dyes. I was really looking for just as clean supplements as possible that had transparent nutrition labels, that had words and ingredients that I could pronounce and actually research and understand where they were sourced from.
Right.
It is, in the industry, the FDA does not regulate supplements. And so you do have to be careful. So do your own research, ask the questions, go on to PubMed, all those sorts of things before you're going to start something. But I was comfortable enough with everything that I was reading, clinical studies that had been done on the supplements, to move forward with Plexus Worldwide.
Does Plexus use the MLM model like some of the other ones do?
It is considered. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
I've heard a lot of pros and cons and so on. So you really got to be able to adapt and embrace that, from what I can tell. What's your best explanation as a pro of using that business model?
So what I found over the years is that the traditional corporate system is a pyramid scheme. You have
Right.
the workers, you've got, even if we use law enforcement, you have your road patrol, you have your road sergeant, you got lieutenants, you got a captain, you got a chief. That is the pyramid scheme. That's the pyramid setup.
It's true.
Well, what we like to say in Plexus is it's more so like fireworks. So using myself as that center firework, I've been able to spread out, by just using social media, by sharing in conversation, and just being a product of the product, living my life, but putting it out there. People that come to the company to use the supplements don't have to work the business. Steve and I did not have to work the business. You can utilize the supplements just like you could walk into any store and purchase supplements. But what's also really, really neat is that I could bring someone to Plexus and they could soar by me with business growth. Yes, there is some growth that happens under me that would push me up, but there comes to a place where if I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and also, working the business and trying to achieve different standards for myself, that person could absolutely surpass me. And so that's why we use the firework model versus, the old school illegal pyramid scheme, because they are illegal. Plexus is not a pyramid scheme. And
that was a pretty good analogy, even bringing a police department in there, because a lot of what I talk about in organizational leadership consulting is there's a lot of organizations, businesses, corporations, they all lead from the top down, or a lot of them do. Yeah. Very few that I have seen cultivate from and build people and create from below in order to build up the team, build up the personnel. So that's an interesting analogy to me, because there is a lot of that, and I guess you could call it a pyramid scheme when you're leading from the top down. So that's very valid. So you said that you had to start sharing your life, sharing about your business. What was the most difficult thing about just opening yourself up to the entire world and social and otherwise?
Well, first, at that point, my social media following was very, very small. I don't even remember why I started social media, years and years back. My sister was in college, and I remember Facebook way back then was only for college students. And then they opened it up. Yeah, then they opened it up to the world, and I was like, ooh, I gotta get in on this. So it was probably because of that, feeling the FOMO. But I had maybe 200, 300 followers or friends on Facebook. Right. And so one of the things was, I've got to expand my market. I've got to expand my reach that I have, because I feel like there's something that I have of worth that I need to share with others. And so one thing that I was very, very purposeful with was expanding that reach, making sure that I was friending, requesting, looking back at those contacts that I had in high school, in middle school, in college, and just reconnecting with all of those relationships. So that I would say that having such a small network at the beginning was something that I thought was going to be just this impossible, mountain to overcome. But, slowly over the years, it's been 7 years. So, we've been able to slowly build up, a nice following, a nice network. And I love the fact that in our business, especially Plexus, I can't speak for other, MLMs or network sharing, social media sharing, we lead with relationship. It's not about the sale. I don't care if you don't purchase Plexus, you know, if you never use it. But I love reconnecting with you. I love, you know, like it's about the relationship. So, you know, if someone comes to me after we've kindled that relationship again and we're talking and we're pouring each other, you know, a conversation about each other's lives and stuff like that. If someday they ask about Plexus, awesome, you know?
Right. What's your biggest piece of advice for somebody that is trying? So I'll kind of frame this. You know, I work with real estate colleagues and stuff and try to give them hints in building their branding and building their social media marketing. Because anybody that gets into real estate may learn quickly that 90% of it's marketing other than selling homes. Yep. So what is your biggest piece of advice for somebody that's looking to start their own branding, to make that jump into social and share everything that they're doing?
Yep. So what I would say is, first, just do it. Just get out there, start posting, start, you know, getting your face into social media. If it's Instagram, if it's, you know, MeWe, if it's whatever, you know, Facebook, get out there, just do it. Something that's helped me over the years that I'm more so now putting into practice is content calendars. So someone that's in real estate, you know, you want to narrow in your brand. Being a Plexus ambassador, I have all these different pieces and parts of who you know, that make me up, you know, like you did in my introduction. I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I was a gymnast growing up. I'm a competitive bodybuilder. You know, I've got all these different facets that, yes, I could put out there, but that's a lot. And that can be overwhelming to an audience. And it's confusing, you know, like, what is this girl? She's like all over the place. So
I get that too.
What you are going to share. I actually had a friend come to me and she's like, if you were to think of me, you know, what are 3 things? What are the top 3 things that when you think of me, what are the words, you know? And it was baseball mom, it was health and wellness, and it was she likes to share fashion. So that's her brand right there, those 3 things.
That's awesome.
So for whoever, you know, is coming to you or whoever is looking, you know, to get out there with social media marketing, sit down, write down all the passions that you have, things that you love doing, your hobbies, things that make you you, and then narrow it to like 3 things. And those are the only things you're going to share on your social media. That doesn't mean that that's the only things that make you you, but that's just what you need to put out there.
That is like one of the best explanations I've heard yet. That's great. And realistically, it, you know, I've completely embraced the business to human concept, that we're all human. We want to deal with other humans. You don't want to be sold. You don't want to be pitched or tricked or whatever it might be. You know, people will stop scrolling if you look real and you're doing real things. You know, if you're standing there in front of a Bugatti and look at me, you know, most people just keep scrolling on by. But if it's a video of you and your kids and you're out playing soccer in the yard, that's a little bit more human contact than what people are looking for. You threw in there a little bit about your competitive bodybuilding. How did you end up in that?
Okay, this is not that it's a funny story, but my husband for years, I mean, like pre-children even, was like, Rachel, like, you should get in the gym, you should lift. And I'm like, no, like, see, you don't understand. As a gymnast, like, I was very built. I never had definition, but I was strong. You have to be. If you look at like high level, collegiate, national level, Olympic level gymnasts, like, they are built. And I didn't want to be like that again, you know? So I had this irrational fear, because it is. You see the memes of the like girls of, you know, just a girl head on like a Hulk body. And I didn't want that at all. I didn't want that. And so I had to get over those like preconceived notions or like fears of what was going to happen. But so what really got the ball rolling with it, my daughter was our baby, McKenna, she was going to be going to kindergarten. So this was maybe like the spring of 2017. And I knew come September, when Liam was in school and now she was going to be in school, that I was going to have this like 6-hour window, if I wasn't working in the hospital that day, that I was going to be at home. Yes, I was going to be working my Plexus business. And yes, I would probably like do my workouts. At that time, I was like with friends running road races, running the Mountain Go, you know, the Shamrock Run, different things like that around Syracuse. But I wanted something else. Having that background in competition, I was just aching for like a challenge. And so Steve actually connected me with a couple people locally in Syracuse, officers that he knew that competed. And also we had some connections through Plexus. And I was like, how awesome would this be? Because yes, Plexus is put out there as gut health, as energy, as weight loss, but there's also so many natural ingredients in these supplements that can support muscle development and body fat loss while maintaining muscle mass. I'm like, how awesome would it be to put myself out there as an even further product of the product and put our supplement line to the test and go through a competition prep and do a show, you know? So I signed with a coach that was local. He was at Aspen, right in Camillus, had a history of bodybuilding competition himself, highly successful. I mean, competed all over the world. I believe he was Mr. Ohio and just amazing. Scott Morrell, he no longer lives in Syracuse. Him and his family have moved to Tennessee, but I met with him and he's like, all right, let's do this. And I had never touched a weight other than like, okay, I'm doing like little bicep curls or like tricep kickbacks, you know, like the girly lift, you know, that, you know, those with no experience, you know, do to try to tone. So he took me for 24 weeks. And the first 12 weeks were to learn how to lift. I mean, I had to learn how to squat. I had to learn what a bench press was. I had to learn, you know, all the things. So we tried to pack on as much muscle as possible in 12 weeks and then maintain that muscle in a fat loss phase for the second 12 weeks of that 24-week prep. And I competed in my first figure competition in November of 2017, and the bug just bit me. I'm like, this is awesome. This is awesome. So yeah, here I am now and still, you know, competing, still lifting. Love it. Absolutely love it. And I don't look like a She-Hulk, which is great.
Well, and that's what I was going to say, is because like if anybody sees any of your content about your workouts, your competition stuff, you're very lean. It's not like you're, you know, 24-inch pythons and you know, you're very lean with your muscle mass and so on. And I think a lot of ladies could take away, like even I was just thinking about, so last year, my wife and I, because of COVID, we had some time and everybody was home, we really, you know, dialed in the fitness. And, you know, we've both been working out every day ever since. And her biggest concern was, you know, I don't want to put on a bunch of muscle and you know, but she's really gotten into it. Her definition, she won't admit it, but her definition is a lot better. You know, it's made it. I've seen a difference. She'll argue with me that there's nothing there, but that's just the way she is. So I guess my point is that there's a way for females to work out, to lift weights without bulking up. If they want to bulk up, more power to them. That's a whole different, you know, competition class, I'm sure. But you can work out and be lean. Yes.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely.
What's been the biggest help as far as developing your physique and so on? Is it just the consistent workouts, or is it everything, or?
So I was actually thinking this morning, come June, I will have been lifting pretty consistently for 4 years. So for someone, I'm not advanced age by any means, but I am not 20, you know?
Right. That's my biggest problem.
So for those that want to see muscle development, we are such a society of quick action. Like I want to, even with supplements, like I want to take this probiotic and I want it to regulate my gut microbiome tomorrow. Well, that's not going to happen. And the same thing with muscle development, especially if you are a natural athlete. It is not going to happen overnight. I do not look like how I did in June of 2017 when I first started. You know, to bring your wife's conversation back in, her just starting. When I started in 2017, I was a rectangle. Like I had no curvature. My arms were just long and straight. My legs, I had some lean muscle from running, running hills, training for races, which did at that point help me a little bit in the class that I was competing in. But it takes time to develop natural muscle. So I would say consistency and lifting heavy. You think that, just by little light dumbbells, you're going to be able to develop muscle mass, but you have to force the muscle to adapt. And the only way to rip down those, peptide bonds in the protein in the muscle tissue is to be forcing the adaptation. And you have to use progressive overload, gotta lift heavy.
I think if anybody's seen your workout, you personify beast mode when you get it. It just, I mean, just looking at your social stuff, I mean, you are like in a completely different zone. You are just doing your thing. I'm sure you got music in your ears. You're just in a different zone, which I can appreciate that. And the days, in my 30s and early 40s when I went to the gym and that was it. Put the music in, leave me alone. So it's, I think it's, like you said, consistency. I truly believe it's routine. You build those good habits. You have those routines. 10 years ago, if you said, well, you got to get up at 5:30 in the morning and go work out, I'd be like, no way, I'll do it in the afternoon. Yeah. Well, then it went from I'll do it in the afternoon to it's 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm really not feeling it now, so I'll just wait until tomorrow. Well, now it's like I can't start my day without starting at 5:30 and climbing down the stairs to my basement gym and doing my thing. Yeah. And it's made a world of difference. It really has.
Yeah. Not only for your physical health, but I'm sure too, like your mental headspace.
Oh yeah.
Everything.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. 100%. So you guys recently you and your husband, your family, you recently had another pivot. You left Syracuse. You're now in Indiana. What drove that? Why Indiana?
I know. So many people ask us that question. So Steve and I actually met at college here in Indiana. So he is from Indiana. Him and his family moved from Maryland out here. I think he was in 8th grade. Don't quote me on that. It was either 8th or 9th grade. So, I met him at college and this was his home, several years. So when we dated all through college and we got engaged our senior year. When we graduated, unfortunately, as a white male, it was very hard for him to get picked up by a department anywhere. I mean, we spent his junior year and senior year putting out applications for departments literally all over the country, like Arizona and Florida, North Carolina. He took the troopers test. He took the Onondaga County Civil Service test, like everywhere, Indiana, Ohio, everywhere. Well, I was very easily able to get a nursing position at a hospital. And so after graduating, I went back home to New York and started at Krause in the NICU. And 6 months later, when our wedding came up, I'm like, babe, I'm the one with the job, at least right now, like move out here and we'll go from there, Well, long story short, 15 years later, we were still in New York and his heart was just never settled in New York. Yes, friendships and relationships and my family, are out there, but he was just always not like completely content. And asked, all the time, like, hey, like, would you ever consider moving back to Indiana? And I was, for whatever reason, like just so against it. Like my heart wasn't ready to uproot our kids and move us out to Indiana. So we seriously like talked about it for like 10 years. So it was not this past Christmas, but the Christmas before that. Yep. And, life was it was like right before COVID. And the conversation came up again. And I'm like, you know what? If we're going to do this, if we're moving to Indiana or wherever, we got to do it now or never, because the kids, like Liam was going to be starting 7th grade come the next school year. And McKenna, she was a little bit easier to manipulate being 4 more years younger than Liam, but still we never were going to move Liam if he was in high school. So we were like, we got to do it now or wait. And Steve's like, I'm going to be in New York forever. I'm like, let's just do it. Let's just do it. So truly it just took me finally saying, okay, like if this is the move that you feel, babe, that our family needs to do, and we prayed and prayed and prayed over it. And I finally had that peace to be able to say to him, okay, let's just do it. If this is what is supposed to happen, let's try. And so just everything fell into place, from finding our house out here to selling our house in New York. I mean, yes, COVID kind of threw some crazy things with like virtual closings and, oh my word, like finding contractors out here because we completely gutted the whole first floor of our house, and it was crazy, but the Lord's hand was in it all. And you know, McKenna has had a little bit harder of an adjustment, but we love being out here. We love being out here. And Steve's family is about 15 minutes, his mom and dad, from us, and his brother is a South Bend police officer with his wife and 3 kids. So we still are surrounded by family and extended family. There's lots of like cousins that if you're related at all, you're called a cousin out here. That's what I've learned. So lots of cousins. And so it's been good. It's been really good.
So let's review this for a second. You took a big scary leap off a cliff and left medicine. Took a big scary leap and jumped into Plexus. You leaped without a parachute and went into bodybuilding, and then decided after a lot of consultation to jump off that cliff again and move from New York to Indiana.
Yep.
So what's your next big cliff?
Oh gosh, I have no idea. I feel like we're not ready. I am not ready for another cliff jump yet.
Yeah. That's great. You know, and it's one of those things. And I think a lot of people, especially, you know, talking about the pandemic and COVID, and I've talked about this before, how, you know, it really forced people to look at, do I need to pivot? People had to look at it, businesses, businesses, organizations, everybody had to sit there and look and say, you know, with all this going on and we're spending extended time at home, or how long is this going to last? How is it going to affect my business? How is it going to affect what I do? That if there was more, there really wasn't more of an opportune time to make those pivots or to take that leap off the cliff without a parachute than it was then. And, you know, it's just one of those things where you got to make a decision and go. You know, I've done it here in the recent past. You guys obviously have done it a few times with success. And that's the important thing, is to set yourself up for success, and to, when you do land, that you're cushioning that landing. And heading off into your new endeavor. So I think that's awesome. It's a great story, and that's probably I think that's the one main reason why I wanted to come on the podcast, because of what you guys have all accomplished. And you know, it's just you take all that good and put it together, and it's I think that you are being on this podcast and doing your social media or inspiring other people to do things like what you guys have done.
Well, thank you. That's like our word for 2021 is impact. And so thank you. That really, really, really means a lot.
Yeah, you know, it's just there's enough bad in the world that we need to highlight more of the good. And, you know, this is one of those great conversations that I think highlights the good. And hopefully, you know, anybody that's listening today gets a lot out of it, because there's a lot of great, important nuggets of knowledge in there.
Awesome.
Well, Rachel, I appreciate your time today. Thank you for joining me. I'd love to get anybody's comments on what we've talked about today. If you want to hear more of what we talked about, we can definitely do this again. But drop a comment. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you or connect with you?
Oh, Facebook or Instagram. Absolutely.
Okay. So if you can't find Rachel, just send me a DM. I'll connect you with Rachel. I'm sure she'd be happy to talk to you if you have any questions on Plexus, on nutrition or fitness or anything. But with that, again, thank you very much for joining me. I appreciate your time. You guys, this is the At the Coffee Table podcast, where we sit down and we talk about everything and anything, and hopefully bring some value here and there to anybody that's listening. So with that, take care of yourselves, take care of each other. Have a great day.